The airport lounge was buzzing, but no one heard the conversation between the gate agent and the black woman in the navy blue pantsuit. Not until her voice, controlled but steel-laced, pierced the air. "I paid for that VIP seat, and I'm not moving." The tall white man behind her cleared his throat with a smirk. The agent's eyes shifted awkwardly between them. Then, to the shock of the growing crowd, 2 uniformed flight attendants approached the woman, reached for her suitcase without consent, and motioned for her to follow. Within seconds, she was escorted out of the first-class section, removed without apology, without reason. 5 seconds later, the entire crew involved was terminated. Before we continue, if you are watching our video for the first time, please bless and support us by hitting that subscribe button, turn on your notification bell to get notified for more, and share this video with your friends. Where are you watching from? Please tell us in the comments. We love seeing how far our story goes. To our amazing viewers and our cherished 100 subscribers, thank you for being part of our growth. Your support means the world to us. Her name was Vanessa Cole. To most passengers on that flight, she looked like a well-dressed businesswoman trying to punch above her class. But if they had looked closer, they might have noticed the subtle sheen of her Cartier watch, the confident way she carried herself, and the sleek tablet clutched in her left hand. The seat she paid for wasn't just VIP. It was reserved under her name as the owner and CEO of Elliot Airlines, a company she had built from scratch after years of racial and gender-based rejection. But none of that mattered to the flight attendants. They saw a black woman in an expensive seat. And they acted. The moment she was escorted toward coach, like an uninvited guest at a gala, whispers turned into murmurs, murmurs into gasps. A young woman in the economy row, earbuds half in, turned to her neighbor. "Wait. Isn't that Vanessa Cole? Like the Vanessa Cole?" Her neighbor blinked. "No way. That's not possible. She wouldn't fly commercial." "Oh, she does," the woman replied, unlocking her phone. "She believes in staying grounded. She once said, if you build a brand for the people, fly with them." She tapped record. In the cockpit, the captain, an older man with 30 years under his belt, received a silent update through his headset. "Miss Cole has been moved to 22A. His jaw tightened. "Why?" The voice on the other end stammered. The crew said she was being disruptive. A white passenger had a last-minute upgrade. She didn't want to move. "Who signed off on that?" There was silence. "I'm asking again, who authorized removing the CEO of the airline from her seat?" No response. He turned to his co-pilot. "Get ready to taxi. But we're not taking off until this is resolved. Lock the cabin." Back at the gate, the crew who had escorted Vanessa now stood awkwardly at the entrance of the plane, whispering among themselves. One of them, a blonde attendant named Rachel, flipped open her phone, looking for justification. "I mean, how were we supposed to know who she was? She didn't have a badge or anything." Another attendant, David, shrugged. "She acted like she owned the place." "She does," a voice snapped behind them. It was the captain. He stepped out of the cockpit, his face flushed with restrained anger. "She's not just a passenger. She's your boss. And you just disrespected her on her own flight." Rachel's eyes widened. "Wait. You mean Vanessa Cole, owner, Theo, majority shareholder?" There was a long pause. Then his voice dropped cold. "Pack your things. You're all done." Vanessa stood in 22A, unbothered outwardly, but inside, her heart thundered. She hadn't said a word since the incident. Not even when a mother with a crying baby beside her tried to offer an apology for how the crew had acted. Vanessa smiled kindly, nodded, and returned to her tablet. She tapped open a secure app and typed 5 words. "Proceed. Remove crew. Effective immediately." 2 minutes later, a gate agent rushed back onto the plane. "Everyone please remain seated. We are experiencing a staffing issue and will need to delay departure." Rachel was stunned. "What's going on? They can't do this." The gate agent looked her dead in the eyes. "You no longer work for Elliot Air." "But she didn't even say anything," David protested. "She didn't have to," said the captain, stepping in. "Her company speaks for her. You made your choice. Now live with the consequences. Passengers began to realize what had happened. One woman, live streaming from her phone, said, "We just witnessed the entire flight crew get fired because they racially profiled the owner of the airline. This is wild. History, y'all." Within minutes, the video hit 1 million views. Hashtags flooded the internet. Hashtag Vanessa Cole. Hashtag Black Woman Boss. Hashtag Fired in 5 seconds. Hashtag Fly with Respect. Vanessa was escorted back to first class, this time by a new set of staff flown in via a last-minute call. These attendants, respectful and professional, welcomed her with a warm smile. "Ms. Cole, it's an honor to serve you today." She smiled faintly and finally spoke. "Thank you. I believe everyone deserves dignity. Please make sure no passenger on this flight feels like I did 20 minutes ago." "Yes, ma'am." The engines roared. The plane taxied. But the turbulence outside couldn't compare to the storm unfolding online. By the time Flight 3700 landed in Atlanta, the story had gone global. CNN, BBC, Al Jazeera, and even smaller news outlets were carrying the headline. Black CEO removed from VIP seat, crew fired seconds later. But the twist. The white passenger who was given her seat, a man named Lawrence Finch, was not just a privileged flyer. He was the newly appointed director of aviation ethics at a regulatory firm. He had boarded unannounced to observe Elliot Air's diversity and inclusion practices. And he had failed them on his first assignment. He requested an emergency meeting with Vanessa upon landing. In a private room inside the airport terminal, he stood nervously. "I owe you a deep apology," he began. "I should have spoken up the moment they displaced you." I froze. Vanessa studied him, then nodded. Freezing is human. But silence, in the face of injustice, is a choice. He swallowed. "What can I do to make this right?" She paused. "Make sure this never happens again. Not just to me, but to the next woman, the next passenger, the next human being judged by skin rather than merit." "I will. You'll report this incident?" "Immediately." "Good." She extended her hand. He took it, relief flooding his face. By nightfall, Elliot Air had announced mandatory anti-bias training for all staff. The terminated crew was replaced with seasoned professionals from diverse backgrounds. Vanessa issued a public statement, not to call out individuals, but to call on the aviation community to do better. "Dignity," she wrote, "is not a privilege. It is a right. Let this flight be a turning point in how we treat one another in the skies and on the ground." Moral lesson. Power doesn't always roar. Sometimes, it whispers with grace. Vanessa Cole didn't raise her voice. She didn't protest. She simply acted, with integrity, decisiveness, and humanity. This story teaches us that racial bias still creeps into the places we least expect. But it also reminds us that accountability, when delivered swiftly and with wisdom, can shift entire systems.